what's going on, good people? It's your boy 3STACK in this thing, baby. As promised, I got a Magical Musketeer deck profile for you guys. Actually, shout out goes to my boy East, because he's the one who helped me to get the cards. It's taken me forever to get these cards, you guys. Like, I've been building it little piece by piece, like getting one card here and there, legit like one card at a time. And it's just been a long time coming to get this list. I tested at locals. Unfortunately, it wasn't as big as it normally is. So I didn't really get the satisfaction that I wanted to get, you know, but the deck performed pretty well. It went undefeated today, but there wasn't a lot of players today, unfortunately. So I really want to test it again when there's a lot more players here. But it only played against Stun, Sky Strikers, and also Subterra Guru Control. So I played against only control decks, so I didn't really get to test to see how good it is against combo. Like in real life, I've tested it on Dueling Nexus. It actually does, like, it's crazy good. Like when I play on Dueling Nexus, like when I do end up playing against those combo decks, but I don't know if they're, you know, pro players or anything. So I definitely want to try this deck against some of the better players with better decks. It would just allow me to get a better feel of what I need for it. But this list I have for you guys is technically a blueprint, and it's what you guys can use to build for your Magical Musketeers. And also, there's a few cards that I'm still considering playing and cards that I'm considering taking out. So it's still under the works, but I do like the list how it is right now. There's a lot of cards that I took out. Like, for example, people would be wondering, like, where's your Super Polys at? And, you know, where's Nibiru? Or, like, where's Evenly Matched? Like, there's so many cards that I could be playing, but these were my card choices for right now because I didn't want matchup-specific cards. I just wanted a universal, kind of generically applicable side game. Main board game. And then, you know, depending on the events that I go to, I might modify my side deck and my main deck accordingly. But right now, it's pretty much Sky Strikers, Orcus, and Salmon Grades are the primary decks that I'm seeing. So I crafted my main deck to beat those. And if I ran into Pendulum or Combo, you know, then I would just start playing the Super Polys. You know, for example, if I took this to like a YCS, I would probably sideboard or mainboard the Super Polys. But let's get into the list, you guys. So we start off with 3 copies of Caspar. Personally, Caspar and Doc are probably my favorite ones. I like Kid Brave. He's really good. You can grind out with them for a long time depending on how good you can manage your resources and how you can protect them. But for me, Doc is my guy, and Caspar is just, you know, one of the better cards in the deck. My personal preference is either Caspar or Starfire, but after turn 1, I definitely would say that Doc is your guy. He can't be Ash Blossomed. That's one of the pluses, and it's really easy for you to just keep recurring and managing your resources like a Salmon Grade player or a Sky Strike player would. And you kind of just, you don't have to outgrind your opponent, but you just have to stop them for a turn. And you don't want to break their board. You want to leave it mediocre or susceptible to certain interruptions so that you can resolve your max under an Eagle Booster, which is one of my personal techs in my main deck. I'm playing Eagle Booster to protect my max so it can resolve. I am electing to go second unless the matchup dictates otherwise. So these are kind of just my favorite muskets right now. 3 Caspar, 3 Doc. Pretty insane grind games you can do with this deck. Just if you play your cards correctly, of course. I think Magical Muskets have a simplistic and linear playstyle to a certain degree, but there's a lot of skill level that applies to how you play it. Because anyone could just read the cards and just do what they say, but it takes skill to use your cards correctly and know when to use them, and not just like be all trigger happy and just use them on whatever you see, you know. So next up we have 3 copies of Kid Brave. Kid Brave, he's like I want to say he's like a trade-in, essentially. You go 2 for 2 with him. You pretty much swap a card to draw 2, but you have to play a card in his column. The only time you can really plus off of him is if your opponent plays something in his column, then you just discard 1, and essentially you just went +1 because your opponent didn't read their cards. That's another strength that Muskets have, is that they do have a column control kind of play style that your opponent can generate free advantage and value for you just by, you know, them activating their spells or traps. So normally I play my Muskets in columns 1 and 2, just in case you run into Pendulum, and then other than that, you're going to have it in the middle, because most people play in the middle column or the first or the last. So it just really helps. It's very beneficial. Kid Brave is a great card. It helps you to see more of your engine pieces, more of your side deck cards. And, you know, between the course of your turn and your opponent's turn, and come back to your turn, and that one rotation, you'll draw 2 on your turn, 2 on your opponent's turn, and 2 on your turn again. So you'll filter through 6 cards out of your deck, excluding Resolving Max and Caspar and Starfire. You know, so you have a lot of deck thinning so that you can dig for your specific 1-ofs that you want. So yeah, definitely play 3 of all of these. For me personally, I just think you shouldn't cut these down. And also remember that the strength of a Magical Musketeer monster by itself is they are a 1-card combo. You can draw, you know, a hand with finite resources that's very crippled and hindered. You know, there's a lot of stipulations with this deck where you're required to have a certain card in your hand, a certain card on field. But you can draw a musket by itself and just normal it and make a max. And depending on the matchup, if you're playing monster heavy deck, you can, if it resolves, you can get 4 to 5 back rows. Or if you're playing a back row heavy deck, you just can kill them right then and there, just resolving max, summoning 4 to 5. So you can top deck a magical musketeer and you can just win the game. It all depends on what they do to max. If he resolves it, it's kind of really hard to keep up after that point. Not impossible, but really hard. And then I played 3 copies of Starfire. When you have a really nice looking hand, I prefer to start the combo with Starfire just because you can drop a cast bar and then link the Starfire into a max, leave the max, and keep your cast bar, so then you resolve the max and you still have a cast bar there. So it's a lot of threats, and there are cool little plays and interactions like it happened to me today where like Starfire or cast bar got stopped and then I just linked them into max and then did the same thing anyways. Like, for example, specialed from my deck like I would have done with Starfire, search from my deck like I would have done with Caspar. So Ash hurts to a degree, but because Ash doesn't remove the threat, your opponent can Ash for Caspar and you can link it into max, and they pretty much just went neg 1. So this deck has some cool interactions where you can actually trade card for card in marginal value, and you can still pretty much overcome in the turns of card economy where you can plus harder than your opponent. I played one while. I know most Musketeer players probably wouldn't put respect on him, but there is a such thing as a grind game, and that's where this card is very handy for that. Recycling your maxes. When you resolve a Pot of Desires and you start burning out of resources and Dock isn't enough, you can use Wild to put your targets back, so that way you can special on Star Power, you can search off Caspar and keep playing Yu-Gi-Oh, It just keeps you from decking out too. And then I still believe in Calamity. When I go for the kill, I resolve Max, and I specifically special summon Starfire, Calamity, and if I'm able to, I special Zachiel. Yes, I do play Zachiel. I know some people don't like him, and they feel he's a brick. But the way I see Zachiel is he's actually a low risk, high reward. He's not a high risk, high reward. He's a low risk. He's a bricky one of. You can draw him, and it's not that bad to draw because you can still summon him, but it's not ideal. But he's definitely worth it because this is how you can easily outgrind Sky Strikers and Salamangreats and control decks like Altergeist and Guru Control and Draco. When you're just trading card for card with them, just going Desperado, Last Stand, Cross Domination, Dancing Needles, Crooked Crown, Fiendish Deal, and you can draw up to 5 cards on your opponent's turn. That's pretty insane. It's redundant. It's like a spellbook of judgment almost, essentially. That's how it feels. It's a little convoluted, and sometimes he's not as good as he could be, but he has a great potential. The most I've drawn off of him was 4 cards so far, and the fact that I can play 4 cards to stop my opponent and then draw 4 cards, to me, that's really insane, you guys. So definitely don't underestimate Zachiel. He's worth it. I would never cut the card. He's insane. And when you're going in for your kill with Max, you want to bring out Starfire and Calamity. You'll just trigger your Starfire, special summon the monster that you want, and then you can link with the Starfire and something else, make a Nightmare, then resolve your Calamity and bring back Starfire. And if you play Double or Nothing, you still have that play. Unfortunately, I don't have Utopia Double or Double or Nothing, so I had to OTK pretty much the old-fashioned way, where I was just pushing for damage because I don't have Boros Sword either. So it kind of sucks that you can't close out games as fast as you want, but it is what it is. And that's it for the muskets. And then for more monsters, I played 3 Pankratops, and that will conclude the monster count. Pankratops is a beast, a really great card, helps me out. Trading 2 for 1 is always a good interaction, where you can force out 2 things like attack over Inspector Border and pop a back row, or bait the Heretic Sphere and then bait a Jackal King in the Pendulum matchup. Like, it just depends, but Pankratops is just he's that guy. And then for spells, this may seem a little weird. It's a little convoluted. I can understand that it's not applicable in every scenario, but I do play 3 copies of Eagle Booster. So if you're going to ask where you're Called by the Graves, these are my Called by the Graves, but they're better. Because Eagle Booster is actually applicable in so many more scenarios, for me personally, with my game plan, because I'm hardcore trying to resolve Max, and I'd rather have Eagle Booster than Called by the Grave, because in scenarios where your opponent will activate an Infinite Impermanence, or use a Jackal King, or use a Odd Eyes Vortex, or something like Thunder Dragon Titan to try to pop your Max, anything like that, you can just chain Eagle Booster, and playing 3 really helps when you draw multiple, so you can have a Chain Link War, and as long as your Max resolves, it can be just the demise of your opponent, especially if I was playing Double or Nothing, because you could just OTK your opponent under a Mystic Line, but unfortunately I don't have the Double or Nothing. But I definitely think this card is absolutely worth it. Some people can say it's bad, but it's totally player preference, and me, I like this better than Called by the Grave. It also lets me stall. I can protect my Max, make them unaffected by card effects, and can be destroyed by battle. That really helps. And when you're going second, breaking boards, you can activate Instant Fusion, summon out your Thousand Eyes Restrict, or I personally, I'm going to show you guys a really cool tech that I play. It's my personal tech. I didn't get it from anywhere. Invoke Kalika, where you can pretty much, for example, activate Thousand Eyes and try to take their monster. They chain to negate. You can chain Eagle Booster to make Thousand Eyes unaffected by the negate. Now they have to have a secondary negate, which means you're baiting 3 cards with 2. So you're going 2 for 3 in that scenario. That's really good for me. So yeah, it really helps. So 3 Eagles. Again, pretty much I explained all the niches that it can fit. I do play 3 Mines. I think Magical Musketeers can play Mystic Mine really effectively. It's one of the best strategies to play Mine. You can play it going first or second. Normally, you don't want to sight this card out. I know that it doesn't trigger their column activations, and that's, you know, it's kind of, it loses that tad bit of marginal value where it could be residual, and, you know, sometimes it can be finite where your hand just isn't adequate and sufficient for you to do the push that you want, but Mine is one of those cards that it's worth it. So I definitely play 3. I haven't really seen any Musketeer lists playing it, but I think that it is correct to play. Personal preference, of course, play whatever you want, dude. If it works, it works, you know. But 3 Mine for me, it's a really good card. And then I play 3 copies of Pot of Desires, and I also play the Upstart for the draw power. Kid Brave, Pot, and Upstart gives you ample draw power. You don't want to play too much, but at the same time, you need some. You know, this is a good bait also for Ash Blossom and cards in that nature. And, you know, it's Pot. You know, it's a +1. It's inherently a good card. Everything that matters in this deck is at 3, so there's a very low risk of you banishing the combo pieces that are very focal to, you know, your playstyle. The trajectory of the deck initially is not to break boards before you resolve max, but to break the board after you resolve max. So you don't want to play cards. I was before playing cards like Evenly Match, and I was playing Afterburners and Jamming Waves and, you know, like back row move for like Twin. The problem is, as you're trying to break a board so that you can try to resolve max, the issue becomes Max loses more and more value, and he nearly becomes a 1-for-1. That's why I decided that a card like Eagle Booster is just infinitely better, because I can keep the board established and I can play through negates without destroying them, because I want my opponent to keep their cards so that Max gets even more and more value. So you don't start breaking the board until you've made your Max, and that's pretty much my trajectory. I don't know how anybody else is playing it, but, you know, that's just me. 3 copies of Mind Control. 3 copies of Instant Fusion. If there was a mirror match, I would say this card is godly. You know, if a mirror match ever happened. Mirror matches definitely take skill. I'd say that. Magical Musketeer mirror match ain't no joke. We played 3 Instant Fusions. Instant Fusion is just a universally, just pretty much like, it's so universal in so many scenarios. It's really, really good. This list did go undefeated today, but like I said, it just wasn't a lot of players, so it doesn't really feel as gratifying as it normally does. But the Instant Fusion, another cool interaction with Instant Fusion. So people are really sleeping on this card. I pretty much put this on the map a while ago. Invoke Kalika. I did it in my Held to Perfection deck where I was playing against, like, you know, combo decks that put up a billion negates. I would just activate an Instant Fusion. Smart players don't negate it because it's you can activate again if they negate it. And pretty much you summon your Kaliga. If you guys read Invoke Kaliga, it literally says each player can only activate 1 monster effect and can only attack once. So what I'll do is I'll Instant Fusion, and if they let it resolve, I drop a Kaliga. Now my opponent's 5 to 6 negates become 1, unless they find a way to do it with Kaliga. And how you protect your Kaliga is with Eagle Booster. So you'll have a Kaliga, your opponent can negate 1 of your cards. You only need 1 monster effect to resolve. You can play your game correctly. Because sometimes I'll go Invoke Kaliga, Beta Negation, activate Mystic Mine, in phase this dies, I control no monsters, and I can just play my game like that. So I think Invoke Kaliga is definitely slept on. Like, it just turns off ridiculous boards. It's not counterintuitive at all. It's actually a really underestimated card. Of course, nobody plays it, so, you know, nobody's going to play around Kaliga. It's an insane card. Really good Instant Fusion target. And then I have these as well for Instant Fusion targets. So this is like another Called by the Grave, essentially, because of Millennium Miser Strict. So again, that's why I don't play Called by. Not to say it's a bad card, but I just don't play it. I played 3 Costoms. I was going to play Steady Hands, but the interactions where Steady Hand is good, it's so niche, so few and far between. It's just a really good name. It comes up sometimes, but it just doesn't come up enough. In the future, if it just continues to come up, I'll just play it. But I just play the 3 Cross Doms. And then I also played 3 Desperado, Bang Bang. And then personally, this is a wild tech, but I played 3 copies of Dancing Needles. Now this is a card that if Magical Musketeer players play Dancing Needle at all, they normally play 1. But my mindset was playing competitive. I'm a competitive player. You know, I play to win, so I know what the format looks like, and it's shaped out to be like Salmon, Great Orcus, and Sky Strikers. Now, this card is not as good against Pendulums, but against those 3 decks, it's very dominating. Taking away your opponent's Rays, their Foxies, you know, especially when they pay cost for Foxy, their Spinnies, their Gazelles, their 1-of Gazelle. For, you know, Orcus, it takes away their follow-ups. It's a really powerful card, and playing 3 allows you to trigger 1 on your turn, search out another one on your opponent's turn. When you play this card correctly, you can dominate the Orcus matchup, because you can loop this from the graveyard, search multiples from your deck, and every time they resolve Nightmare or just, you know, attach stuff from Dingirsu and just try to get their follow-ups, you continue to just banish those cards. And they can play, but it's so crippling, it's almost like they're playing with the crutch. So I definitely love this card. It's a great 3-of. It's a free activation because everybody puts cards in their grave, even if they're playing Pendulum. And like I said, it really dominates. It's a great card. And it's very slept on. And going first, when you have this card in your hand going first, it's literally another interruption. So this deck can technically put up 4 interruptions in the form of Cross Dom, Desperado, Dancing Needle, and then, yeah, I played 3 last stand. Most lists play 2. I don't understand why, because last stand is one of those cards where if sometimes you don't have it, you just automatically lose. Like, and when I say automatically lose, you just hardcore lose to, like, there can only be one, summon limits, you know, weenie floodgates, all that stuff, bro. Like, you need this card, chain it to Solemn Judgment. You know, if they Solemn Judgment, like, for example, Mystic Mind, like that happened where, like, Mystic Mind got Solemn Judgment, and I'll chain this, you know. You cannot chain this if your opponent Solemn Judgments your Magical Musketeer summon. You cannot chain last stand because they're responding to the summon, so your Magical Musketeer monster is not recognized as it's established on the board, so it's unfortunate you can't chain it if they negate your summon. But in all other scenarios, if they try to change Strike to a monster effect, if they try to Judgment a spell, or, you know, activate Orca's Crescendo, you can just negate the Crescendo with last stand. So it's a really good card, great 3-of. It counters so many side deck staples. It's really good. I love it. And then I do play Phoenix Steel. This helps out a lot playing against negations, because if you just preemptively activate it, your opponent either can negate it, and if they won't, because it's kind of a mediocre card, they normally don't. What happens is now you can activate a Caspar's effect, they'll negate it and destroy it, but this says it can be destroyed, so now you can make your max, baiting a negate, and just, you know, try to write it out there. And I still play the Crooked Crown. This card is really insane with the, it adds an extra depth and layer to the kind of the column control that this deck has, because this card's best effect is probably locking out columns. Other than it being an extender, inherently it solves the problem that this deck's nature is its normal summon is its most fragile starting play. But with Crooked Crown, it kind of is a problem solver, and it's an insane extender, like dropping Zachiel, you know, and drawing cards off of Zachiel, and it's every main phase, so it's on your main phase, on your opponent's main phase. You can generate a lot of advantage off of Crown, so it's definitely a good one-of. And that's the main deck. It's not 40 cards, but I'm not the guy that believes that you have to play 40 cards to win. Some people believe it religiously, like if you don't play 40, it's just not consistent, but I don't agree with that. So the side deck, I side deck 3 ties, so this is also a trap that I promise you, I have not seen Magical Musketeer players playing this. This trap, I told a lot of my friends about this, like everybody I know that plays Magical Musketeers, I was telling them about this trap. So World Legacy Awakens, it immediately after it resolves, it lets you link summon. So what it does is it lets you summon max on your opponent's turn. So if you open ties plus a level 3 target, which is insane, and you have World Legacy Awakens, you can just snowball out of control in the terms of card advantage. One of the most gratifying feelings is an in-phase Awakens, because it says immediately after it resolves. It doesn't have to be in any phase. You can in-phase Awakens, summon a max when your opponent sets backwards like a Sky Striker player, summon your max, special summon like 4 to 5 muskets on your opponent's turn. Then on your turn, you just go off. Like, there's just so much advantage. It's so hard to lose. It dodges effects like Widow Anchor. When they, like, try to activate Widow Anchor to take your musket, you can chain this. You know, it's a very, very versatile card. But the point is, summoning max on your opponent's turn is really where it's at. Like, your opponent plays combo. They Pendulum summon their hand, and they're getting ready to convert to the Guard Dragon combo and stuff. You resolve max, and you get, like, a Desperado, a Cross Dom, a Last Stand, and, you know, Dancing Needles, and a Crooked Crown. Just, like, insane value off of just resolving Awaken. So, if you don't play it, you definitely should pick it up. It's a cheap card, and Tides of the Brethren is just kind of like a pseudo FTK, but not really. Some decks can play through it, but a lot of them will get to a point where they'll play through it, but they don't have enough steam left over to actually beat you. So it's a really good card. I just don't like main decking it because I don't like this deck. My list can go first without side decking, but I like going second. So, you know, if somebody wants to try to mind game and make me go first, it can still go first to a degree. But it's definitely, I prefer going second. Then I played 3 Sanctums, 3 Judgment, 2 Strike, and then Scythe. The card that I really want to play in my side deck is actually Shared Ride. Shared Ride is a really good card in this deck, but when I pick up my Shared Rides, I'd probably find out a ratio and just like do something like cut a strikes, you know, cut the strikes, and then like, I don't know, like cut something and then put in 3 Shared Rides. Or I could just take out 3 of this and then take out 1 of this and put in 3 Trap Tricks, so I have like 6 World Legacy Awakens, or I have like 5 copies of Sanctum. It just depends, but the side deck is still under construction, I'll say that much. The extra deck, I played triple max. Even though you play 3 for the grind, I still found myself putting this card back with Magical Musketeer Wild, that offside, you know, off the wall is one of them most people don't play. But it's a good card. If you're a Magical Musketeer player, play Wild. It's such a good card. We have Security Dragon, Service. Security Dragon helps in the Thunder Dragon matchup so that you can have a way to clear multiple. Because don't get me wrong, Unicorn's good, but sometimes you have to clear 3 different fusion monsters. So you need Security Dragon, Unicorn, and Ningirsu, and then your follow-up would be Avermax after that. And well, a lot of these cards are being borrowed. Like I said, shout out to my boy East. So we got these. So once you make Max and you resolve his special summon effect, you're going to be making Cold-Link Nightmares, drawing cards, breaking boards, and then you're going to end on an Avermax every time so that you have a strong follow-up and protecting all of your muskets from being attacked into. This card is really hard to get rid of. It's annoying to deal with too. And then I played 4 Instant Fusion targets. These are pretty generic. A lot of people play these. Mud Dragon can help in the Sky Striker matchup because you can preemptively Instant Fusion for this, call Light Attribute, and now when you summon your Light monsters, they cannot target Light monsters, so they can't activate Widow Anchors. You know, their cute little back rows won't work on you, so it's really good. And then Invoke Kalika, I explained this. This is really for combo and for Thunder Dragons. And, you know, decks are just put up way too much. Like, specifically in the Thunder Dragon matchup, this just turns off Titan automatically. Like, it's just so good. They can have 1 Titan pop, and it would have to be on this, and that's what makes it even better. So this card is definitely slept on. No, nobody's playing it. Like, it definitely should be considered. It's just, I don't know why people don't consider it, because it's actually way more powerful than any of my other Instant Fusion targets. Then I played Dweller and Baguska. These are turn 1 plays. If you open Instant Fusion plus Starfire, you can Instant Fusion in her column, special summon Caspar, and overlay the level 4 fusion target and Starfire into one of these of your choice, and you can grind it out. Just stall for a turn. All you need is 1 turn because you can kill your opponent with 1 musket. Like, that's the beauty. Like I said, it's no exaggeration. The Musketeers are 1-card combos because Max is a card. So you can get so much advantage off of just 1 Musketeer. You don't have to stop them. You don't have to break their board. You just need to buy yourself a turn. So you just need to survive. You need to live. So Baguska, that sleepy boy. And yeah, that concludes the profile, you guys. You will get an update profile from me, and probably with different cards. It depends. But right now, I really like this list, and it's effective. It works. It did exactly what I wanted it to do, and that for me is a success. So thank you guys again. Peace out, yo.